Hi guys, welcome to my very first podcast. Okay, I am so excited right now because I have been meaning to do this for so long. So long. I have had this podcast microphone sitting in my desk drawer for probably 2 or 3 years. I'm not even kidding. I think I probably bought this during COVID when I was stuck at home and I was like, you know what? I'm so bored, I'm going to start a podcast. And that never happened. But over the years, I've been watching podcasts and researching and trying to figure out how to upload a podcast to Spotify, which I still have not figured out. So I figured, you know what? I already have a YouTube channel and plenty of people post their podcasts. They do a video podcast so you can watch and listen, and they post it on YouTube. So that's what I'm going to do. So this is the setup for now. I definitely need to get like an extension cord so I can actually like sit. I wanted to like sit and get all cozy on my bed the way Emma Chamberlain does. Let's see how many times I mess up in this podcast and how many mistakes I make while speaking. I make mistakes while speaking quite frequently. Now, anyways, so this is the setup for now. I want it to feel all like cozy because that's why I love watching Emma Chamberlain's podcasts and like Leo Skeppy, because it just feels like cozy and like, I don't know, it feels like I'm on FaceTime with them, and that's what I want with my podcast. So welcome to my podcast. I am thinking that I'm going to call this Mental Health with Megan. I really like alliterations. I really like alliterations. I think it's because I like writing. And my Jeep was named Jessica the Jeep. Now I drive Tiffany the Toyota, and you're watching Mental Health with Megan. I actually really like that name. I think I'm going to keep it, unless I can come up with something better. But anyways, so I kind of get off on tangents and get off topic a lot when I talk. So I have my little notepad here so I can stay organized and talk about all the things I want to talk about today without messing up too bad. So let's get into this. Okay, so my first thing about having a podcast is, do people edit their podcasts? And I know the answer to that is yes. Like, some people edit their podcasts and some people don't. I hate editing. I do not have the patience to sit down and edit videos for a long time. So I'm hoping that I don't have to edit my podcast and I can just upload the raw version, the first version, and it just is what it is. And if I mess up speaking, that's okay. And if something goes wrong, that's okay. And if it never makes it to YouTube, like most of my other videos, that's okay too. So what topics do you guys want to hear about? What topics would you guys want to hear about me or about? Give me a minute. What topics do you guys want to hear me talk about on my podcast? There we go. Comment down below, like, what you guys want to hear me talk about. If you have questions, I want to do, like, I have so many ideas already for episodes, but I definitely want to do, like, some girl talk episodes, some Q&As. I want to talk about, like, my job, about college, about my life. So comment down below what you guys want to hear me talk about on my podcast. Gotta stay hydrated. Remember to go drink some water. Especially because it's been very hot and humid out. Okay, so since this podcast is called Mental Health with Megan, and I am a big advocate for mental health, I think mental health is extremely important. Because if you're not well mentally, you're not going to be well physically, and vice versa. So I've had some struggles physically in the past couple years. I had Lyme disease, I had mono, which was really bad. I was sick for over a week with fevers, basically 24/7, really high fevers, and we couldn't figure out what it was, and at first I just thought like, oh, it's a flu, like it'll go away in a few days. It did not go away, and I ended up in the hospital, and that was the first time in my entire life that I had to stay in a hospital, and I was terrified. I mean, I knew that, like, I was going to get taken care of, and I knew that I needed to go to the hospital. After 7 nights of having a fever, a high fever with no relief, nothing helped, I knew I needed to go to the hospital. And they didn't know what it was. They could not find out what it was for the first 2 days that I was admitted into the hospital, and that was terrifying because they told me that I had a really low blood cell count and I might need a blood transfusion. Another doctor told me that I could have sepsis. Like, I was getting all these different answers and I was terrified. So I was also not doing good mentally during that time because I was freaking out about what was wrong with me. You know, to be in a hospital and for 2 days no doctor knows what's wrong with you it's worrying, you know, it's worrisome for me, for my mom, for my family. We were all just like really worried, and then obviously I felt physically crappy too. But the hospital took very good care of me. They found out what it was. The whole first night I was admitted into the hospital, I did not sleep for a minute. I literally was just up watching YouTube on my phone all night long, and I was really grateful that I had brought stuff to the hospital with me because I guess I kind of had an intuition that I was going to get admitted because I was just so sick. It was really bad. I looked pale. I could barely walk. I was so weak. I couldn't even get out of bed. I was just really sick. So I brought my phone charger, and I had stayed up watching YouTube all night long. The second night, I was like, okay, I need something to sleep. I did not sleep last night, so they gave me melatonin. I actually slept a little bit. Then they wake you up at 6 a.m. for blood work and whatnot, and you hear the beeping all night long and whatever. It was a crazy experience. There was a code red while I was in the hospital. Something was on fire, and I was terrified because I was thinking about episodes of Grey's Anatomy, and literally an alarm starts going off out of nowhere, and the door to my hospital room shuts and locks by itself. So you know what I was thinking. If you watch Grey's Anatomy, you know what I was thinking. And I was terrified the whole time. It was quite an interesting experience. But anyways, the point is, they took wonderful care of me in the hospital. I was very grateful for all my nurses and doctors. They finally figured out that it was mono, so they couldn't do anything except give me fluids, Tylenol for the fevers. So they monitored me for a few days, and finally they sent me home. And I have struggled with Lyme disease as well. So basically, going back to what I said before, if you're physically unwell, you're going to be mentally unwell, and vice versa. So since all of this stuff happened, I've had a lot of mental health struggles. I would say when I had mono was when it started, and that was back in April. My grandma also passed away on April 15th a year ago. So April's always been a tough month because my dad passed away on April 28th. So every time that part of the year rolls around, it's a tough part of the year. So I had the anniversary of my dad, the anniversary of my grandma, and actually on April 28th was the day that I was admitted into the hospital. So that was really weird. And my roommate in the hospital looked and sounded just like my grandma. So I felt so safe and so relaxed when I finally got a roommate, and it was a woman that literally just reminded me exactly of my grandma. She sounded exactly like her, she looked like her, and it was making me sad, but at the same time it was like so comforting. And me and my mom were just talking about this yesterday. Like, when somebody passes away, you start to notice their traits in other people. You know, you'll see or hear other things that people do, and you'll be like, oh, that reminds me of my grandma, you know? All right, we're getting off on tangents already. But basically what I'm saying is I've been struggling with my mental health for a long time, basically since like April, for various different reasons. So I had mono in April. It was the end of school. It was the last couple weeks of the semester. Bam, mono. I was out of school for 2 weeks with mono right before finals week. Yeah, so that was stressful. I was obviously trying to do schoolwork while I was homesick, but I was so sick that I couldn't. So I was freaking out about my grades. It was the last couple days of school, and I had a ton of work to make up. I had to study for finals. I passed all my classes, and I did pretty well, but it was just a really tough situation, and I was not doing the best mentally. Finally, school ended. I was like, okay, at least I got that out of the way. I passed. I did well. I'm healed and recovered from mono. I'm not sick anymore. This is good. Things started getting better for a while. And then I started my new job working at a restaurant in June. And then my Jeep the engine blew, so I had no car. And I had to make the very tough adult decision to sell my Jeep and get a new used car. It's definitely not new. It's far from new, but it's a nice car. I like it. I feel like I drive a mom car. I went from driving like a hot girl car to driving a mom car, and I'm kind of disappointed about it, but that's life. At least it gets me from point A to B, and I haven't had any issues with it since I bought it except the air conditioning, and that was an easy fix. That's fine. When we start getting into the engine, transmission, problems like that, that's not very fine. But basically all these events had happened, like mono, the car thing, school ending. I always tend to get depressed when school starts and when it ends, because then I have to readjust to a new routine that's completely different than, my life when I'm in school and in the middle of a semester. And I've always had an issue with that. Even when I was little, my mom used to tell me that I had problems going back to school and then again when school would end. And that makes sense because it's a big change. It's a big change for a little kid, and it's a big change even for a teenager and an adult. School is hard, and going back to school and getting back into the routine and a healthy eating pattern and sleeping schedule, so that way you can, fuel your brain and fuel your body and do what you got to do and not burn out on week number 2. Oh, that rhymed. So yeah, I got a little bit depressed in like middle of spring, and then May, June, everything was good. I felt better again for a little while, and everything after that went downhill. So I went on vacation in the beginning of the summer to visit my friend Kira. You guys probably know Kira. She's been on my channel a couple of times. Sorry. Anyway, she's been on my channel a couple of times, and she's one of my long distance best friends. So I went on a vacation to visit her, which was very exciting and very fun. And I got there, and unfortunately, I just happened to have the worst travel day ever. Both of my flights, my connecting flight and my first flight, both of them were delayed. They were supposed to be delayed for like 30 minutes, and the second flight ended up getting delayed for almost 3 hours. So I was not happy. I was not happy at this point. My first flight was already delayed, so I was already like not in a good mood. It was my time of the month, so I felt sick. I was nauseous. I had cramps. Like, it was just not. I was hormonal all over the place. It was not a good travel day. That day actually made me hate traveling. I've never had a bad day of travel like that before, but I guess it happens. It happens sometimes to everyone. But finally, I get there, I settle in, I unpack, I spend time with Kira. I was so freaking excited to see this. Kira, if you're watching this, I love you so much, and I miss you, and I hope that we get to see each other again soon, because traveling is so expensive, and even though we're only a couple states away, it's still hella expensive. But anyways, so I get there, and unfortunately, I find out that one of my friends had passed away, and this was a very young guy, younger than me, who tragically passed away unexpectedly. And I had been talking to him before I met my boyfriend. So we kind of had a little bit of like romantic thing going on. It didn't get super serious. I kind of felt like the connection and the love wasn't really reciprocated. So we didn't start anything, and it didn't really get too serious, basically, but we did have a little bit of a thing going on before I had met my now ex-boyfriend. We'll get to that later. But yeah, I got the news on my first night on vacation that he had passed away, and I was just so shocked, and I wanted to literally jump on a plane and come home so I could be with my friends and my family, but I knew that wasn't going to change the situation. So before I did anything crazy, I was like, okay, Megan, just take a breath, calm down, let's stay on this trip, let's try to enjoy the trip the best we can, and then we'll start working on healing from this when we get back. So I was like freaking out that like I was going to miss his funeral and whatever. I didn't, thank God. I ended up making it back just in time. Literally just in time. The day I flew home, I had to come to his wake like an hour after I landed. Literally, as soon as I landed, I had to come home, get ready, and go to his wake, which was really, really hard. And that day was just I'll never forget that day. I'll never forget what it was like having to fly home to come to a wake, you know. I'll never forget that. And then I was thinking about, I have family all over the world basically, and I was thinking about them, like when they have to fly home for a funeral, and it's like such an awful feeling, like sitting on a plane and knowing that you're going home to lay someone you love to rest. It was really hard. I was like, holding back tears on the plane. I was sad because I had to say goodbye to Kira, and I was sad because of this whole thing. And then, just to be the cherry on top of this trip, my wallet was stolen on the trip, so I had to go through extra precautions at TSA, and it took longer to check in. They had to search me, pat me down, search my whole bag. They took everything out of my suitcase because I didn't have a driver's license. I didn't have ID because all of my ID was stolen in my wallet. So that was fun too, but thank God I got home. They were really good about it. I flew Southwest, and they were really good about getting me on that plane in time, so I was really grateful for that, because then I was freaking out too, and I was like, oh my God, if I can't get on this plane, I'm gonna miss this wake, and I'm not gonna be happy about that, blah, 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 blah. So I had ended up going to his wake with a friend of my boyfriend's, my ex-boyfriend's now, that also knew this guy, and I really appreciate that this unfortunate event had brought me closer with this girl. So we had went together, and I got there just in time for all of the speeches at the end of the night, so I listened to all that, and then I went up to his casket, and I said my prayers and said my piece with him, and that was really hard. Open caskets are always hard. They're never fun. But just seeing someone so young like that, it just really, really hurt. And I hadn't spoken to him in a while before he passed away. So it was just a whole big thing, and I felt guilty, and I felt sad, obviously. And the following evening, I went to his candle lighting, and, it was just really sad. But he did end up donating his organs. His family decided to have him donate some of his organs. So at least something good came out of it. He saved people's lives. And I also have an uncle who passed away and was an organ donor, and that's really special. With the unfortunate event of death comes life, I went to his wake and everything, and for days after that, I ended up taking a couple days off work just because I was really not doing well mentally and just kind of rotting in my bed, which happens often when, things like that happen, or when you go into a depression. It happens, and that's okay. It's like part of life, you know what I mean? So I took a couple days off work, and I, laid in bed and cried and just tried to process this, because it didn't feel real at all. Even after going to the wake and seeing him like that, it still didn't feel real. So, yeah. And I was very depressed all summer long, unfortunately, because summer is like my favorite season, and the middle of the summer, I ended up getting cheated on, and I dumped my boyfriend because I'm not going to stay with a cheater. So that happened too. So basically just a lot happened. And it was a hard summer, and I was depressed all summer long. So basically I wrote down some things that helped me kind of pull myself out of this and get out of this funk. And I think that maybe they can help you guys too. So I wanted to share. Okay, so the first thing on my list of things that can help is drinking lots of water, staying hydrated, taking care of your body, eating good foods, giving into your cravings here and there as well. The second thing is reading and writing. So I really like having a good book. This is not what I'm reading at the moment, but I just wanted to show you that I got a book that's about Paris, because I'm taking a solo trip to Europe in 2026. And I'm so excited and so terrified, and I'm excited to read this. But anyways, that's not the point. Having a good book to read always helps me, because it takes my mind off things, and I always used to hate reading, but I've really gotten into reading lately, because if you have a good book, it takes your mind off things. And I also happen to read, the last couple of books I read have all been about grief, and while they are sad, yes, they are also helpful, and I really enjoyed reading these books and crying and feeling the emotions, and they kind of helped me deal with my own grief, So having a good book I think is very important if you like to read, or a magazine, or an article, or a comic book, anything. The next thing is writing. So I like to write. Being, in theater, I write scripts, I write books. Well, I haven't actually written a book yet, but I write short stories. I am planning on writing a book, which is, I guess, kind of like a little exciting announcement that I haven't mentioned at all yet. Well, now I mentioned it. I am planning on writing a book. I have started writing a book. I am planning on publishing said book at some point or another in my life. So that's exciting. But writing helps so much. Journaling, writing, just sitting down, letting it all out, putting it all out there on a paper. It just helps. My therapist had me write a letter to my father who passed away when I was young, and it really helped me. And I wrote a letter to my friend who had passed away, and journaling just helps. And I heard something on TikTok the other day that said journaling is written prayer. And I really like that, because throughout this summer, I've kind of reconnected with God and gotten closer to God, and I've been praying more, and I was able to reconnect with God throughout all of the crappy things that happened this summer. And I really like that journaling is written prayer. I don't know. I just really like that. So that makes me want to journal even more. I really, really, really like that. And also journaling is like manifesting. For example, I wrote a journal entry and I post-dated it for a year from the day that I wrote it. And I was writing it in present tense, and I manifested my apartment. Like, I swear to God. I literally have a journal entry it was post-dated for the next year, and it said, like, I'm having a wonderful day. I just woke up in my new apartment. It's empty. There's no furniture in it yet, but I'm so happy to be here, blah, blah, blah. And the next year, that date came around, and I was in my apartment. Manifesting is real. Just saying. So journaling, manifesting, reading, drinking lots of water. The next thing on my list that helps is CBD oil. If you're like me and you suffer with anxiety, I have been diagnosed with anxiety. I have not been diagnosed with depression. I don't think. I might have been. I don't really remember. I went to the doctor a long time ago about this. But I do get depressed, and I feel like even if you don't have depression, everybody gets depressed at one point or another. Same thing with anxiety. Even if you aren't diagnosed with anxiety, you don't have anxiety, people still get anxious. Anxious is like a feeling. It's like an emotion, like people still get anxious and depressed regardless of whether they're diagnosed with it or not. Anyways, if you have a lot of anxiety and you're going through a depressive episode, something that really helps me is CBD oil. I'm going to link the CBD oil that I use in the description down below, because it's inexpensive and affordable, which is great because a lot of them are very pricey, and it really works. You just take a dropper, you put it under your tongue, 15 seconds, let it sit, swallow it, and it's amazing. It clears your mind. It takes all the fog out of your mind. And just when I'm crying, I like to take it if I'm crying and panicking and can't seem to calm myself down. It really helps. It really does. As far as other things that help, everybody's different, so everybody might have different things that help them, but I really like leaning on my friends when I need them more, when I'm going through a really tough time like that. So I really like having good people in my life when I'm going through a depressive episode. I lean on my mom a lot more, my best friend. So yeah, it's really good to have good people in your life. And I know that's not always the case, unfortunately, but don't be afraid to reach out to your friends and be like, hey, I'm having a hard time. Can we talk? 9 times out of 10, they're going to say yes, and they're going to be there for you. And if they're not a good friend, and they're not a real friend. So ditch them. Bye-bye. Bye-bye, because we don't need people like that in our lives. Other things that help: walking, exercise, yoga, meditation. I hate exercise, but I have been going to the gym again, and it feels really good. I've been to the gym this whole week every day, and I didn't go today because I was really exhausted, and I'm like, okay, that's okay. I do have a little bit of OCD, so I'm like, I really should go to the gym, and I'm thinking about it and freaking out, pressuring myself, Megan, you need to go to the gym. If you don't go to the gym, you're lazy, this, that, and other thing. And I'm like, Megan, stop. You went to the gym every day this week. That's good. That's enough. You need a rest day. So anyways, walking just helps. a little bit of exercise, any kind of exercise, if you can get yourself out of bed and go for a walk or go to the gym, it really does help you feel better because it releases endorphins. It helps you feel better. And some people, believe it or not, some people like exercising. So if you like it, good for you, even better. Another thing that helps, sunshine. This whole summer, I had spent pretty much most of it laying in my dark room. And then this whole past week, we've had a heat wave, and I've been in the pool every day. And I got some color, and I swam, and I relaxed and floated around in the pool. And I was like, damn, this is so nice. I'm like, why wasn't I doing this all summer? Like, I was so depressed that I couldn't even get myself to do that half the time. But it was so nice. So go out of your house and get some sunshine. If it's nice out and it's a warm fall day or spring or summer, whatever, it's a nice day outside, go get some fresh air. Even when it's freezing cold and snowing, go get fresh air. Fresh air is like nature's medicine. It's so good for you. No matter how you feel, if you're sad, if you're anxious, if you're depressed, if you're happy and you go outside, it still makes you feel better, So get some fresh air. So that's all I have for you guys today. Those are kind of like the big tips that help me get out of a depressive episode. And I would say that I'm doing a lot better. I was really excited for school to start because it's giving me something to put more of my time and energy and focus into rather than the negative and the bad things going on in my life throughout this summer. So I'm excited and not excited about school. Like, I've already been like, I can't believe I have to do this again, school, but then I'm also like, it's a good thing because I have something else to do, basically. Like, I was only working 2 or 3 nights each week during the summer, and that was not good for me because I was sitting at home, sad, depressed, with nothing to do. My friends were at work, or they were busy, or they were on vacation, so I spent a lot of this summer in bed, and that's okay. We all go through seasons. The seasons change. Some are going to be good. Some are going to be bad. Sometimes you're going to be depressed. Sometimes you're going to be on top of the world. It's just life, unfortunately. But a good reminder is if there was no bad days, we wouldn't have good days because we wouldn't know the difference. We wouldn't know that today is the best day ever or feels like the best day ever if we didn't have days that felt like the worst day ever. You know what I mean? There's a good contrast. We need to have that contrast in life. Otherwise, life would just be really boring and mundane. If every day was the same and every day was a good day, eventually that would get boring, wouldn't it? So that's all I have for you guys today. Thank you so much if you watched this first episode of my podcast. If you stuck around until now, comment a flower emoji, a yellow flower emoji if you stuck around until now. I love you guys so much. Make sure to subscribe and stick around for more. I'm really proud of myself and excited that I'm finally doing this podcast. So I hope you guys enjoyed this first episode of my podcast, and I hope you come back for more. Make sure to subscribe, click the bell. I love you guys so much, and I will see you in the next one. Bye, guys.